the reason that I think that they're using Andrew, who originally got his research on the Hebrew roots from me, the reason I think that is twofold. Number one, they get their history on the Hebrew roots right. In fact, as I was watching, I thought, man, these guys really have researched. And then I was like, oh, I know where they're getting this from. Me. And the reason I think that is because when I put my video out on the history of the Hebrew roots movement, I had not actually gone far enough back. And it wasn't until about a month and a half ago that I started doing even more research. The Wheelocks, who originally used the term Hebrew roots, and they copyrighted this term, right? They made this their term, right? The Hebrew roots. Okay, they use this in the 80s, and they're, along with Joe Good and others, they come out of the Worldwide Church of God, and this is exactly what the guys in the video say, is that the Hebrew roots movement come out of the Worldwide Church of God. This is true. However, they don't go back far enough, because Armstrong comes out of the Church of God Seventh Day. Church of God Seventh Day was Dodd, and Dodd in the 1930s and 40s, he's publishing, and he's basically what happens is he came out of Seventh-day Adventism, and what he says is, okay, we should be keeping the Sabbath, but we need to reject Ellen G. White. So far we're on the same page, right? Like, yes, good, okay, accept the Sabbath, get rid of Ellen G. White. But then what he says is we also need to be celebrating the festivals, and I'm like, hey, right on, this guy's got it. But at the end of the 1930s, when he is publishing, what he does is he goes way off kilter. He becomes a sacred namer. And what the guys at Cultists do is they actually go on a side venture with the sacred name, which they say comes from the 1930s, but they don't attribute to Dodd. And that, to me, says that they were taking from my, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like they were taking from my research before I got to that point in my research. So that's why I think they're pulling from me. Okay, so all of that to say, I have a vested interest in this. And the reason why is because they only took half of my research. They only took the Hebrew roots part. They didn't look at the Messianic part or the pronomian part. And honestly, that ticks me off. What are you doing? If you're gonna use my research, at least use it in full. Don't cherry pick it. Come on. What are you doing? Frustrating. Okay, sorry. Yeah, now that I've gone off on that tangent, should we actually look at some of this? So let's set this up real quick. Do you want to say anything before I jump in?
No, let's go. Let's get in there. Get us rolling, and we'll.
Okay, what these guys...
there's going to be more than we're going to be able to cover, but let's just get started.
I agree. What these guys have done is they have taken... And they say one of the main characteristics of the Hebrew roots movement is something called one law or one Torah. By the way, this is another reason I think that they're using our work, is because the only people who call it one Torah theology is TorahResource.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're using they're using us, right? They're using us as, but this is where they're getting it wrong, because what they're neglecting to say is that the Messianic movement also uses one law or one Torah theology. Now, not all of them. The UMJC, the MJAA, on the front, their statements of faith say that the Torah is for the Jews and not for the Gentiles. Okay, so this is different. However, if you get into the Messianic congregation, I get messages from people all the time who say, hey, we're going to an MJAA congregation, and we disagree with them on the place of Torah for the Gentiles. So yes, leadership might actually be writing these statements of faith, but the people sitting in the pews, there is a significant number of people in the UMJC and the MJAA who hold to one Torah theology, or one law theology, as everyone else except for TorahResource calls it, right? So anyway, what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, if you believe in Torah observance, and this is the same thing that Andrew Schumacher does, it's the same thing that Solberg does. Basically, what they want to do is they want to discount, and the way that the cultish guys are going to insulate themselves from a response like this is they're going to say, okay, well, the Hebrew roots movement doesn't have any centralized statement of faith. I've said this. And that it's extremely hard to nail down what they believe. I've said this too, okay? And so they say, there are going to be people out there and they're going to say, hey, you're misrepresenting us. That's not what we believe, and we believe in the Hebrew roots. Well, what is being really missed in this whole conversation is the fact that there are tons of people who see themselves as Christians in the Christian church that that hold to pronomian theology. Or there are people who are Messianic, who not only have rejected the Hebrew roots movement, but have fought for decades against the Hebrew roots movement.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.